دشمن تلفات داد بسیار الحمدلله تلفات سنگین داده بچه‌ها سلا گرفتن مرمی گرفتن زیرکار تا کردن
و به هر تقدیر چیز است ضربه بسیار فضل خدا کارساز بود عملیاتشان از شبانه داد و 3 شب دیگه عقب انداخت.
Later, Massoud and his friend Khalili crossed the river to a small house reserved for them. Khalili films along the way. They listen to music, and you can even hear Massoud laughing.
Around 3, he got tired and a bit exhausted, and he all of a sudden got just sat on the mattress and said, "Let us read poetry." That was Commander Massoud's habit in all his life. Whenever he had discussions very serious, and then at the end he was taking refuge into art and poetry. He had a book of Hafiz, the great poet of Persian literature, a mystic and philosopher, a man of every century. In Afghanistan, we have a tradition that we take that book and open it. Whatever comes in that, we see it as our fortune in the future. And he said, "Let us, Khalili Sahib, you also lie down and we read it." It was around 3:30 in the morning and the beginning of the autumn and a beautiful night. I opened it and this ghazal or piece of Hafiz was on that. فریب جهان قصه روشن است. فریب جهان قصه روشن است. ببین تا چه زاید قصه روشن است. فریب جهان قصه روشن است. ببین تا چه زاید شب آبستن است.
On the morning of the 9th, the fighting begins again, and Massoud has to meet his commanders on the front line about 20 kilometers to the south. They remind him that there are 2 Arab reporters that have been waiting for 9 days. Massoud agrees to see them around noon before he leaves for the front, but for a quarter of an hour at most. Massoud doesn't like to be interviewed, but Saif strongly advised him to take this opportunity to improve his image in the Arab world.
They opened the door and 2 boys came. One with a big camera, black and a curly hair and tall and with boots, very confident. And the other one bit shorter, I recall little, bit, fat, but shabby, and he sat there just beside Commander, about maybe 25, 30 centimeter on his left. I was on his right, and then there was a big table, and the cameraman came and put their camera there, about 1.5 meters. So Commander had a habit always to ask the questions first and then tell the cameraman to start. I asked him, "What paper you represent?" He said, "I'm not a journalist." I said, "Then what you are?" He said, "I belong to Islamic organizations. Our base is in London, Paris," and then he said, "all over the world." I just touched Commander and I told him he belongs to other side. I meant to Taliban and Al-Qaeda. He said, "Leave him, ask the questions." Then he started asking the question. I remember and recall there were about 15 questions. Most of them, or more of them, maybe 8 or 9, were about Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda. The questions were like this. Why in Paris you said Osama bin Laden is a killer? Why in Belgium you said Osama bin Laden is a fanatic? Why you do not follow him? Why you are against him? Commander, actually his mood went down, and again his forehead, the lines were more than before. Instead of 2 became 5 or 6, and I could understand that Commander didn't like the questions. Then he said, fine, let him start the camera. The boy started very confidently his question. He knew that he would die after 2 minutes. We didn't know, but he had a smile. He was confident. He was, I can't forget his face, the way he was looking at me, especially the last glance of that photographer, that when he looked at me, he had a poisonous glance that I always remember that. Maybe the meaning was that you don't know that you'll die. And then I told Commander, he said, what's the situation in Afghanistan? I said, what? The minute I said what in Persian, that something like this. I didn't hear a sound. It was just like to me. And everything went inside me, and all the sound and all the smell and everything was inside. But I was conscious, very conscious, for maybe a minute, which took me like 1 hour. I saw the fire was coming, a blue, deep fire rushing towards us. And then the fire was wide enough to encircle us. And then I thought that maybe a rocket. Then I thought about Commando. And I was feeling a kind of smell that was very much from outside and inside, a heat which was too much, and I could not shout. And then I thought everything will come out. And then something happened, I don't know, that I heard, or I told, or I felt, I thought that like this: you are not a goat to scream, to cry. Say something holy, you're dying.